Sorry about the delay. This is the story about the Chicago, Tennessee story. Now, back in Chicago, there was a very stupid feud going on at the time, where the South Side brothers didn't really get along with West Side Chicago brothers. Why was this a trend? Who started this? I had no idea. But it was dumb. And what happened was, more people from the West Side started to migrate more to the South Side. And more South Side guys started hanging out West. Because jobs and opportunities were coming short, far, and few in between. Now, during the late 90s, a crackdown happened by the federal government that started to round up all of the organized gang members that they could find, especially in African American gangs. Their structure was gone and disrupted. So in that disruption, a lot of things fell apart. Connections, new flow, where mostly the government was controlling who got what and who didn't get what. They were gonna pick what section drugs would be sold in, and people will be able to function as they were trying to clean up certain areas to improve the city of Chicago. So people had to find other ways and means to make money. So this one hustler named Brick was very smart. Brick had a crew, you know, and he was a monster. And Brick just came out for a bid for, they couldn't get him on an attempt murder charge, so they had to get him with the, with the weapon charge. So they got him with a weapon case. He had to go do like some years. While Brick was away and he had came back, he saw everybody that he knew was going in. That most people panicked and started taking riskier moves and riskier plays, and they started getting themselves incarcerated. Brick saw this as an opportunity. During his time locked away, his cellmate had a bunch of books, man, about strategy and infrastructure and how corporations took over other businesses and how armies and everybody took over, and you know, infrastructures and strategies, and he learned everything from these books. And when he came home, he implemented it. He started to see what was going on the streets. The drug game was still the way it was. You know, people were still looking to get high and do all this. The cops, they were on top of all of it. They were allowing some of it to go down, but then when they're ready to pounce, they know who to grab. So he was looking for new means of hustle. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Stick around. Okay. Well, anyway. So he wanted to use a new ground of hustle. And he started to research and watch the news, read newspapers, and he found his niche. He found it right in black and white. The state was going up and taxing. Cook County was raising the tax on tobacco, on cigarettes. While doing that, raising the cigarette price, it was causing an outrage. And they were showing how people were going over the border to Indiana just to buy cigarettes. They were like, we're going to go over there. And other businesses who were close to Indiana and Illinois were complaining that they were losing the majority of their business because they sell a lot of cigarettes. Now people are not coming to their store to buy cigarettes no more. So they were thinking about suing the city. And he saw the niche. He said, that's it. That's the wave. Cigarettes. So he went to research where he could get the cheapest cigarettes, but make sure it was cost efficient here in Chicago, Illinois. So he saw Tennessee was a gold mine. Wasn't that far out, and he could bring the cigarettes here. And he went there and he started buying cartons by cartons by cartons. And he didn't want to buy them all at one place. He did just as if he was starting a drug empire. Set it up. Put the plan in motion. And while this plan was in motion, sorry about that. He had people selling loose cigarettes, 35 cents a cigarette, depending on the brand. People had to have their menthols. They couldn't afford to buy a whole pack. Prices was too high. 40 cents a cigarette, 25 cents a cigarette, depending on the brands. So he had his guys, his crew. Instead of selling drugs, we're gonna sell cigarettes. So when we standing on the corner and they pat us down, we got cigarettes on us. Everybody gets one pack. And don't you dare smoke one. And if you do smoke one, let it be your personals. And when you're through with that pack, you come get another pack. I don't want to see nobody out there with 3 packs of cigarettes or a carton with them. If somebody asks you and they want to pay you for them, this is the way you do it. He had a house for operation where the cigarettes were. That was basically the base of operations for cigarettes. The house that he got was right across the street from the police station. Right across the street from not just the police station. And it wasn't the police station. The courthouse. The courthouse. Right across the street from the courthouse was the biggest operation. Was right across the street. Because doing his research, he discovered that having a base of operation right in the face of the place where they would least expect it. People would want to be as far away from a courthouse as possible. There's inmates coming in, there's cops, and they said this is the least of the place they're looking. It was genius. Completely genius. Now, with this done this month, $27,000 in the first month. The second month, they made $138,000. Then it went up. It went up. It went up. It wasn't enough trips to Tennessee. Now there's cars and boatloads of cars going to Tennessee to buy out the cigarettes. Deals were made in Tennessee with companies to where they had a guy on the inside who would just sell cigarettes and just would casually by the day, you know, mark the cigarettes off like they're being sold daily to make sure the numbers match up where it won't draw suspicion. But he was getting his money. Pretty soon it led to Brick going all the way to Tennessee to get in a house in Tennessee to set up operations as a backup house. Other people started to emulate it on the south side of Chicago. What they had going on the west side, they were flourishing. But now this random thing that they had here was like a Mexican standoff. Because now the south side's business is getting ready, just like the drug game, is getting ready to cross over into their business that they had a monopoly on. So just like anything else, they got to defend it. And you know how defending it goes. It's a war zone. And the cops show up and they're thinking there's drugs and they don't find any drugs. You know, it's all these just cigarettes. So, of course, one guy that used to work in the operation while Brick was away decided he wasn't getting enough money. So he decided, man, I ain't getting enough money. We too close in the vicinity. I got to spread out. So he decided to enterprise and break the rules that were all set in place that Brick had put in the organization of his crew. Nobody selling more than one pack. Keep at least just 2 packs on you at all times. Nobody sells nothing without talking to him. Don't nobody take a carton and none of that stuff. So he decided to break the rules. He had a whole cartons upon cartons, and he decided to sell them. To show you how, okay, there it is. To show you how greedy he was. It went from more than just being about working with, this went for more than just working for Brick. He had his own cartons he went and bought from Indiana. He was going to flip those too. Start making money on the back end. Yeah, it's all about him. So he was being watched. And he was hanging outside of the gas stations. Something Brick told him don't do, because that's going to draw a lot of suspicion unless you have a deal worked out with some of the guys. They did. You had the permission to be out there. Other than that, it's loitering. And the cops could be called in. And so the Arab guy saw this guy hanging around outside and said, you know, we need to move in here and intervene. So he called the cops, and then the cops arrest the guy. They go to his car, take him to his vehicle. The guy got a trunk full of cigarettes. Trunk full. And he's selling loose cigarettes. So now, this is a government federal tobacco laws, something that was never enforced. Now they're like, man, what is this? Is this was the new drug now? Like, what's happening? And because of the rising of the taxes on the cigarettes, people were crossing over the borders. If they could get it cheaper anywhere else, they're gonna do it. Now there's a new game in town. But now it's like, well, what clarifies somebody selling cigarettes for business, or somebody just really just offering them money for a cigarette? You have to be caught with a certain limit of cigarettes. And this is why this was the hardest operation to break. But this one idiot, it's always one, his greed farly exceeded anything he could ever imagine as far as damaging an entire operation. The highest grossing cigarette in the city of Chicago was Marlboro Reds and Newport Menthols. And if you were on the west side of Chicago, Newport Menthols were like gold. The lack of menthol will drive an individual insane. They have to have that menthol. So it was always important to have those two cigarettes. They would go by the trains and get the guys that were coming in willing to buy loose cigarettes. And people would buy them. They would want their reds. They would get them cheap. They would buy 8 at a time. They didn't care. It was cheaper than buying a pack of cigarettes in Cook County. That's what was important. Less costly. Long as the price came back to the original price they were paying, they would pay it. Cheaper than going to the store. They made a killing. And this one idiot, keep from going to jail for 20-some years, offered to be a spy to go back and destroy Brick's organization. Told them where the stash house was. Everything. See, the problem is Brick was so smart. He forgot one key thing. You gotta have a number 2. If your number 2 don't know your operation, only you can run that operation, you don't have a strong number 2, you're gonna fall. In any business, you gotta have that run things when you're not there. You can't stretch your reach and grow and expand. But yeah, they called Brick on the government violation of selling cigarettes to the extent it made him he's locked up now doing like 20 some odd years for cigarettes and the distribution. So that was part of his operation that went down the tubes. The Tennessee connection, other people though that was under him, they've learned and they started running the system themselves. So for anybody who don't think it's still going on, it's still going on, baby. They just got a lot smarter and they learned from this situation. But this is how the Chicago-Tennessee connection really got going. And the Chicago-Tennessee connection started to grow as far as other things. But that's another story.